morning everybody, welcome to episode 69 of my Yarny Corner. My name's Alex and I live in Yorkshire in the UK, and this is a podcast all about knitting and crochet. So welcome back everybody, how have we all been? I think it's been just over 2 weeks since the last episode, or has it been? Do you know, it might actually just be 2 weeks today. I think it is 2 weeks. That's a bit of an angle there, that's better. Is it? No, it's not. Yeah, I think it actually has been 2 weeks. So it's been it feels like it's been forever since I've last been here. We've had birthday bonanza during the last 2 weeks, so that's been really busy and really fun filled, and thank you for everybody that joined us for birthday bonanza. We do look forward to it every single year. I seem to have just run away with myself there. Before I get into anything else, let me just say all the information about where you can find me is linked in the description box below this video. If you just click the little more button, you'll see it. And anything that I talk about will be linked in the description box as well. So yeah, we've just had birthday bonanza and we had an absolute blast during birthday bonanza. It was such a lot of fun, it really was. And my knitting's it went in a weird direction. It did go in a really weird direction. I'd started this year saying no more than 3 whips. I wasn't going to have that overwhelm. And something happened which snowballed into something else. So I was going to take part in a cardigan cal and I had bought a pattern for it. If you've watched Birthday Bonanza, you know the saga. If you haven't watched Birthday Bonanza, you might want to catch up. It didn't work out. It just didn't work out. I got myself really disappointed because I'd planned this cardigan. I was lucky enough during Birthday Bonanza to be gifted with a number of patterns. So again, I know I've said thank you already, but again, thank you so much if you did give me a pattern. So once the cardigan didn't pan out, I cast on another shawl. That was my mistake. It's an Amber O'Brien shawl that I absolutely love and I am going to knit, but I got a little bit overwhelmed having 2 shawls on the go. My painting honeycomb shawl is still on the needles. It was my Christmas Day cast on. As usual, the animals have started. Hang on. Sorry about that. Every time I press record, there's been nothing going on until I press record, then the animals start. Anyway, the painting honeycomb shawl was my Christmas Day cast on. It's a pattern I've loved for ages and I really want to have this shawl. The problem with it is it's got a lot of stitches on right at the start. So there's no sort of increasing slowly to a large stitch count. You go straight into a large stitch count. So it's taking me a little bit of time. But when I cast the second shawl on, what happened was I just worked on anything else other than a shawl. Does this make any sense to anybody, or is this just an Alex thing? Suddenly, I must have been overwhelmed with having 2 shawls on the go, and I wouldn't work on either of them. And it took me a few days to figure out what was going on. I was just casting on other things. So I'm going to talk about, well, I'll talk about it now because I've already started. So I realised quite quickly, maybe it did take me 2 or 3 days to realise, that my problem wasn't that I didn't want to work on the painting honeycombs or that I didn't want to work on the adventuresome scarf that I'd cast on. It was I didn't want to work on both of them concurrently. So what I decided to do was be quite sensible and frog one of them back and to work at a later date. So because the painting honeycombs had the most work on it and I'd started it first, I kept that one and I frogged the other one back. I am going to do the other one because I absolutely adore it. But I'm going to be, if I'll have one large project on the go and one or 2 small projects, a sock or a hat or something like that. I'm not having more than one large project on the go from this point forward because it just, I do have OCD. I really do have OCD. And I think that's why I get quite overwhelmed with too much going on. I think that's well, that is why I get quite overwhelmed with too much going on. So it's just me knowing myself at the moment and being quite sensible. So because of that, I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 finished objects. That was why I have all these finished objects. So I'm just going to get into those. I'm going to start with the first one, which I talked about on the last episode, which is this one. This is the Enchanted Evening Cap by Aimee at Happy Little Yarn. It's a beautiful, beautiful pattern. If you remember on the last episode, I was really concerned about this folded brim. I didn't need to be. Aimee explained it so well. I had absolutely no problem with a folded brim. The yarn is from Stash, which is another of my goals this year. I can't remember the yarn, but I did talk about it last episode. It's one that my friend Karen bought for me. And yeah, I just love it. It was a really, really well written, easy pattern, vanilla knitting sort of thing to do. And I just loved it. So I'll pop it on. Oh, I just love it. I just absolutely love it. It's more beanie style than what I usually do. Can you see the back? So it's a bit more fitted than what I usually do, but it's just fabulous. This is a free pattern on Ravelry by Aimee. She is bringing out a more updated version with different sizes in, and I believe different yarn weights. I could be wrong on the different yarn weights, but definitely different sizing. This is just one size and it's free. If you're wanting different sizes, if you go and check out Aimee at Happy Little Yarn, I'll link the podcast in the description box below. She'll talk about more when that other pattern is coming out, but it's just fabulous. One skein project. In fact, I had enough for a second hat, which you'll see in a minute, out of leftovers. And yeah, I just absolutely love it. It's a real grab and go hat. When it's cold, you want to just get it on, snuggle up in it, jump in the car and go. It's one of those kind of hats. It's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. No issues whatsoever with making this. And I was really impressed because the last time I tried a folded brim, it did not go well. I think, was it the Oslo hat? I have the pattern. I might try it again. Now Aimee's taught me how to do it, I might try it again. I think it's the Oslo hat because Karen at the Karen Knit podcast has made a ton of these Oslo hats. And I've been eyeing them up. So, do you know, this could be the year of hats. You'll see when I get going, you'll see. So, yeah, I just love it. So that is the Enchanted Evening Cap by Aimee at Happy Little Yarn. So once I finish this, Danny's been asking for a new hat. The hat that he's got, he's had it for quite a while. It's really bobbly now and he just wanted a new hat. So I had, well, I think I had about 45 grams of the yarn left, so I couldn't use the entire yarn for Danny's, but I did want to use it. That's another goal this year, is to try and finish skeins of yarn rather than using half a skein and then just sticking it in stash. I want to try and use as much of my yarn as I can where that allows, because sometimes if you've got some sock yarn and you've made a pair of socks, you don't want to knit with the same sock yarn straight away. So I'm not going to be over strict, but where I can, I want to try and use all of a skein of yarn so it's not just ending up back in stash. So I knew that I couldn't get a hat for Danny out of the yarn that I had left, but I did have some grey that matched the yarn perfectly, and this is what I did. So I didn't follow a pattern for Danny because I know his size, I know how many stitches I need to cast on. 4.5mm needles, and I can't remember off the top of my head how many stitches. I think it was, I normally do 100, 104, something like that. But if you want to make this version of what I made, if you look on my Ravelry project notes, I wrote down exactly what I did. So I started off with the scrap yarn that I had. This one is fingering weight held double, and you can see it's a perfect match for this grey here. And I just did it in blocks. Once I got to here, I thought I'm going to go, if I run out of yarn, I'll just add another grey section at the top. And I managed, I think I had a tiny, tiny nugget of the yarn left at the end. Not enough to make anything with, and not even enough really to go around a needle. So I used every last bit. Oh, it smells of Danny. I used every last bit of this. I can't try it on because it's not going to fit me. It's going to be far too big for me. But it fits Danny perfectly. So I was really pleased. Like I say, if you want to know what I did, I wrote everything on the Ravelry project page for. So you would, if you followed them notes, you would get this man's size hat. Yeah, and I was just so pleased to use the yarn, because when Karen gave me this yarn, I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I was so pleased to use it all. So that's finished object number 2. And then I was watching Kevin and Ray from the Needles at the Ready podcast. Now, I talked about this a lot on the vlogs. I must have been living under a rock because this had bypassed me. I'd kind of heard about the emotional support chicken, but it's one of those things, I'd heard about it, but it hadn't registered. And I was watching Kevin and Ray at Needles at the Ready, and they had both made an emotional support chicken. And it was one of those projects where I immediately went, oh, I'm having that. I am just having one of those. So I did cast on the emotional support chicken. Are you ready? Are you ready? Oh, I just love her. Love her. Well, actually, it's a him. And he's called Cooper. And I know that chickens are girls, but let's face it, he's blue and purple, so it can be a boy. But yeah, he's just gorgeous. It was such a fun make. So I will link the pattern in the description box below. If you are thinking about this and you're kind of on the fence, the designer does have a link on the Ravelry page, so you don't have to buy the pattern to see the tutorial, where you can have a look at the tutorial and see what you think. It was a really easy project. It was just short row after short row after short row. Not difficult short rows, really easy ones, but if you need to get used to knitting short rows, this is the project. There were a ton of them. So you start off making one side of these feathers, then you make the other side, and then you join them together, and it's knit flat. So you, if you can imagine this being flat out, you're knitting backwards and forwards over here. This is obviously knit separately, and this section, you can't really see it. That's because my sewing skills are so good. No, it's not, it's the yarn, it's the yarn. But there is a section that goes here, and that is knit separately as well. And obviously you pop the safety eyes on. It was a really fun project. I didn't use anywhere near the amount of yarn. She'd called for 2 skeins of the main colour and 1 skein of a contrast colour. I only used less than 1 skein of the main colour, and I think it was 15 grams of the contrast colour. So I had a ton of yarn left over. And I used worsted weight yarn. It is a worsted weight yarn project, but you can use fingering weight yarn held double. It doesn't matter. Somebody had commented on that vlog video where I showed it and said one of her local yarn stores makes them in all different weights. I mean, can you imagine a little tiny fingering weight one? How cute would that look? You'd have to do it on really small needles so you can't see the stuffing. But it would look so cute. Or one with mohair. Can you imagine one with mohair? If you like, I'm not great with mohair, so I wouldn't knit that. But if you've got some mohair, oh, it would be amazing. So it's really cool to snuggle. It really is. And I just absolutely love it. I really, really love it. It's so, so stinking cute. My friend Sue has asked me to make her one. And I thought I was going to get out of this by saying, I can't ship that to Canada. Until she came back with, well, you can flat pack it, Alex, and I'll sew it together myself. She has the pattern herself, so I may tell her she's got to make her own, because she will enjoy it once she gets going. But if not, I may make her one. She's got a birthday coming up in June, we'll see. But yeah. Oh, just look, just look. I've seen people doing like block sections, so one colour here, a different colour on the other side, and then the stripe, and then this a different colour, and then the stripe, and then different colours. Oh, there's just so many possibilities you can do with this. So if you are on the fence about the emotional support chicken and you're not sure, just go for it. Just absolutely go for it. Oh, that reminds me. This one, right, I'll talk about that in a minute. Remind me, I need to talk about the make along. If I forget, remind me. Right, there we go. So that's the emotional support chicken. So from this, I had nearly an entire skein of this cast on. So I feel really bad in this episode because I feel like I'm sharing projects where I can't share a pattern, and this next project is one of those. Technically, I've shared the pattern with the Danny hat because you can go on Ravelry and see the pattern for that, or you can see my notes. They may not be that cracking, but you can see my notes. But I wanted to use the rest of that yarn. Again, it was a worsted weight yarn. I didn't want it going back into stash to sit there. The yarn's been sat there for nigh on 2 years, and I didn't want it to sit there again. And I was also thinking that I may need a beret. I've seen a lot of berets being knit recently, and this particular pattern, I'm keeping the suspense going here, aren't I? This particular pattern I have made before. And I loved it the first time I made it, but I never had the confidence to wear it. I don't think I even showed it on any social media or anything, which is why I have this pattern. I shared it on Instagram and the Facebook group the other day, and somebody commented to say the pattern is discontinued. So I went back to check, and it is discontinued, although the designer links... She's given the rights to the pattern, or no, the exclusivity of selling the pattern onto somebody else. And there is a link to follow, although when I followed the link, I could not find the pattern. I'm going to share it anyway, because a beret is a beret. You know, you can find a beret pattern. There is a lot of them on Ravelry. And this is the star-crossed slouchy beanie. Because of the yarn, you can't really see the gorgeous cables in it, but it is fabulous. Now, like I say, I've made this before and loved it. I kind of did it in like a really vibrant purple and then didn't have the confidence to wear it because it was really vibrant purple in your face. So I never wore it. I think I ended up giving it to charity. So I don't have that one to show you. But when I went back to knit this for a second time, the needle sizes were huge, and I don't remember that from the first time that I knit it. It was asking for an 8mm for the actual beret, and I think a 7 for the ribbon. Now this is worsted weight yarn, and I can't remember the stitch count. I think you cast on 74, and I thought 74 stitches on a 7mm is going to bury me. So I did change the needles a little bit. Now, I went down to a 5mm needle for the cast on because I thought that's more my fit. So I cast on with a 5mm. And then I dilly-dallied about whether to go up to an 8 for the main part of the hat or whether to go to a 7. I realised that it needed to be a big needle to get that big hat that was going to be slouchy. I'd looked through the Ravelry listing, the project pages for this hat, and an awful lot of the projects, once they were made, they were very, very tight like a beanie, and I wanted it beret style. So I thought, right, I'm just going to do the 8mm. If it doesn't work, I can pull it back and go to the 7. As I was knitting it, this was looking so big. In fact, when I blocked it, it was too big for my dinner plate. That is how big this looked. Now it's dried, it doesn't look anywhere near as big. But it was looking huge, and I was really, really getting nervous. I thought, this is not going to go well. I just had the whole fiasco with the cardigan. I was not ready to have another dead-end project. So I thought, just keep going, because even if it doesn't fit, you're going to learn what needle size you want, and you can do it again. So it may not work, but you're going to learn from it. So I forced myself on, and let me just put it on. Ooh. I honestly have not taken this off. Every time we've gone out, I have had my beret on. Now on the back, it looks really big, but I love it. I just love it. So I'm going to bake this again. I am still going to wear this one because I think this is going to be my favourite one. But my OCD in my head needs me to try it with that 7mm needle. So I'm going to make it again, and I'm going to do it 5mm on here and then go up to a 7. I'm really sorry talking about this pattern so much if you can't access it. I'm hoping that some of you that are better on the internet than I am are going to be able to say, yes, Alex, you just go here and it's there. I'm really hoping somebody's going to comment and say that. And if you do, I will put it on the community post straight away because it's a fabulous pattern. But like I say, I am going to do it again with 5mm needles for the ribbon and then 7 and just see what happens, because it does, I like it, I really like it, but I don't know if I could just go a tad smaller. But I have worn it every single day since I made it, and it's just, I think from now on I'm a beret style person, and I always wanted to be a beret style person but never had the confidence for it. So now I think I'm going to be looking at all the beret patterns. Oh, it's just fabulous. There are so many on Ravelry. I can go beret crazy on Ravelry. So that's going to be my thing, I think, this year. When I said a little bit ago that it may be the year of hats, it may well be the year of hats, because I think I'm going to go down a beret rabbit hole. And since I shared it on Instagram, so many people have commented saying, I've been thinking about a beret for ages, I'm going to go for it. Absolutely do. One thing I realise with knitting is, even if you do something and it's not exactly how you envisioned, you learn something from it. So the next time you do it, you'll think. So that's what I thought to myself with this. Even if it doesn't fit, I'm going to learn something. I've never made a beret before, so I had no idea what to expect. But yeah, I just love it. Just love it. So I have two more finished objects. Let me just let the cat in. Sorry, Jack was at the window and it's really windy outside. His little fur was blowing up. I had to let him in. Can you see where I got sidetracked? Because I didn't want to work on either of my shawls that I just cast on hats and all sorts of things. Right, my next finished object is upstairs and I can't be bothered to go and get them. So I'm going to pop a picture on the screen. It's the socks that I worked on last time, and I'm not going to talk about them too much. I have socks on almost every podcast and I say the same thing every time. They're just vanilla socks. My usual 20 rounds of ribbon for the cuff. I did 60 rounds on the leg on these ones and they are just fabulous. I have got 45 grams of that yarn left. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. I'm thinking I might make some mittens with it. I don't know. I'm also tempted at the moment by a scrappy Musselburgh hat. So I don't know, but I did finish those socks. I am beyond pleased with them. I'm not casting on any more socks till February now. I don't want to be just making socks, because I love making socks so much. I can very easily get into that habit of just knitting socks, and I have a lot of socks and Danny has a lot of socks. So I'm going to limit myself to one a month if they're taking a while. If I've cast them off pretty early on in the month and I want another pair of socks, I'll allow myself a second pair to cast on. But after that, I'm not going to cast on any more until the following month. And then hopefully that way I can start knitting on other things that I want to try. Because if I'd have been knitting on socks, I would not have cast on that beret. And I'm so pleased that I did, because I can just get sock crazy. So I'm going to be a little bit strict with myself. But they are done and they look fabulous and they are cosy, 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 and I love them. Now, my last finished object is, do you remember me all telling you there was a crochet shawl pattern that I was designing called the Devlin shawl? Oh, I just love it. This is it. Now, the other day, it was all very nearly finished. I had all but about 4 triangles to crochet on this shawl, and then just the joining up. I'd been holding off because I do want to release it as a pattern, and I kind of thought, I'm not sure how complicated it is going to be to join. So I pulled my finger out and just got on with it and thought it'll be fine if I take plenty of pictures, I'll be able to explain what's going on. But let me just show you it first. So this is the shawl. Oh, I just love it so much. I didn't want a triangle shaped, I wanted more of a crescent shaped, so I can also wear it as a scarf if I need to. If it's really cold, I can wrap myself up in it and wear it as a really thick chunky scarf if that's what I need to do. Sometimes I find with crochet shawls, to get the width, and if you're doing a triangle, to get the width, it ends up so deep that it's not really wearable this way. So I wanted that crescent shape. I was really certain, you know, I kept laying the squares out, getting it how I wanted. So this has turned out exactly how I wanted. Now, it's called the Devlin shawl because it's named after my friend Sue, because she inspired me to cast this on. There are 22 squares in this and 15 triangles, and if you lean back a little bit, it's very long. You can see the shape it gives. It's kind of like just a crescent shape, like a modular crescent shape. Oh, I'm so pleased. You need 100 grams of the main colour. Now, they're joined on the diagonal. I love to join granny squares on the diagonal. It's one of my favourite ways to do it for two reasons. The first reason being, it just looks a little bit different. The second reason being, when you join them on the diagonal, you get a lot more length. So you don't need as many squares, and you can create different shapes when you join them on the diagonal. The problem with joining them on the diagonal is it's really hard to explain in writing how to do it. So I am going to release this if you all really want it, because it's going to need a tutorial. When I do a pattern, I like it to be very clear, so there's no room for thinking, what does she mean there? I like it to be really clear. So if I do release it, and at the moment it's an if, it will only be if everybody really wants it. Making the squares is really easy. They are just an 8 round granny square, and then you've got these triangles which are just an 8 round half granny square. Joining it is easy if you've done it before. If you haven't done it before, you've got to mark the squares so you know the front and the back, because when you join in, I started joining them here, they can flip over really easily, and when it comes to going back down here, you kind of, it's hard to explain. If everybody wants it, I will release it as a pattern with a tutorial for joining the squares, because I've got my granny square blanket that I'm knitting on, crocheting on at the moment, and it does need to start being joined. I'm joining it in the same way, so it'd be really easy for me to film a tutorial for this while crocheting on my granny square blanket, because it's exactly the same method. But I just love it. I've got so many of my favourite squares. Where's my one? It's on the tops, that one. This yarn I've had in stash forever, and I've got a little bit left to put into my granny square blanket. And I just think, when you crochet with yarn and knit with yarn, it gives a whole new spin on the yarn. They look so different. This one looked beautiful knit. I can't remember. I think it was I do remember. It was my Mysterium tee. But when you crochet with them, I think it looks so much nicer crocheted, that yarn. It's just amazing. There are some beautiful colours. There really are. So yeah, it's great to wear as a scarf. It's great to wear as a wrap. It's plenty long enough. If I go back, you can see it just sort of sits down to my hip, and it's just fabulous. So let me know your thoughts. So that is my last finished object. So then, after finishing all these projects, I realised that I needed to make a decision on which shawl I was going to work on, because, as I said before, having 2 on the go was just too overwhelming. So I pulled back my Amber O'Brien shawl to knit later on in the year when I'm wanting that kind of scrappy adventy type project. And I've carried on with my painting honeycomb shawl. So there's not a great deal of progress because I didn't make this decision until Saturday. So I haven't picked it up until Saturday. So there's not a great deal of progress to see on it from the last time that I worked on it. But nevertheless, if I can just pick it up, there is progress and I'm really, really pleased with it. This is how it's looking now. Oh, can you see what that yarn? That yarn is a Crazy Zauber ball, and this main colour is one that my friend Sue sent me for Christmas. Oh, it's just gorgeous. The only thing I'm finding with this, like I said earlier on, you cast on at the widest point and then you decrease. So these are all my decreases. It's rolling like crazy. Once it's blocked, it'll be fine. I've checked that on the project notes. Everybody's does until it's blocked. But this, as you're switching, going back to work along the other row, flipping the work to work the other row, it tangles up like crazy in the yarn. It's really annoying. So I might have to get a peg and just peg it out of the way, because every time I flip the work, this is tangled up in the yarn because I have 2 yarns attached. I've got my main colour and the one that I'm working on. So this is my first ball of yarn. I'm thinking I'm going to get another 2 honeycombs out of this before I've got to crack into that second ball. I've got 2 balls of the Crazy Zauber ball for this. And just love it. I just love it. And I've got 1 skein of the main colour. It's a really, really easy pattern. You don't need to keep looking at the pattern. You can just more or less get on with it. You've got 10 rows in a honeycomb, so it's really easy to do. The honeycomb is just slip stitches. It's not difficult. You're only working with 1 yarn at a time. So I'm going to go into my main colour next. I'm going to do my 10 main colour honeycombs while slipping the stitches of the pink one. So it's really, really easy to do, and I can't wait for this to be finished. I want this finished by the 1st of February, so it's all I'm going to be working on. I've not cast on anything else. It's my only whip at the moment. Let me just pop it back, and then I can tell you my thoughts. It's my only whip at the moment because I really want it finished by the 1st of February, because during Birthday Bonanza, when I was talking about the cardigan, Cal, and it went badly wrong, Danny really, really wanted the cardigan, and he said, it, you know, if it came out massive, it was ginormous. I tried to correct it, it just didn't go well, but Danny had said he really wanted a cardigan. Oh, there's a magpie. So I was like, and ahhing, do I cast on a cardigan for Danny? Do I carry on with this? And everyone was saying, just make it for Danny, just make it for Danny, peer pressure. And I didn't. I wanted to try and carry on with it for myself, because the yarn that I'd bought was my birthday yarn that I'd had from Ko-fi donations. And then, of course, the cardigan went badly, badly wrong. Danny's still been asking for a cardigan, and everybody keeps saying, Alex, make him a cardigan. So keep that in your mind. And then I was watching Jeanette last night from Crafty Clegs Creations, and she was talking about Tim asking for a sweater, and I really had to chuckle, because when Danny asked for the cardigan, I was like, oh goodness me, no, just no. Because it's such a big project, and I've never made one for a man before. And like, when I make something for myself like that, I kind of know my sizing. So having to feel like I've got to start from the beginning with Danny's, almost starting from scratch, getting all the sizing and seeing where I'm going, the yoke depth being correct, the sleeve, it seems like a lot of work. And Jeanette was saying when Tim asked her for a sweater, she was like, oh my word, no. But it kind of got me thinking, and I kind of thought, oh, go on then. I'll just make him one. Go on then. I'll make this my goal to finish this shawl by the 1st of February. Then go on then. I'll cast his cardigan on. Which then made me think, if I'm thinking that, maybe some of you are having a similar sort of dilemma where maybe somebody's asked for something or you've seen something and you kind of want to cast it on, but you've got other things on the go. So, a last minute, really informal make-along. I am starting it on the 1st of February. It's called the Oh Go On Then Mal, and it's Ravelry only. I've already got a make-along running on Instagram, and this is more informal. It's a really quick one. It's only 2 months, and it's just going to be for one of those go on then projects. Maybe it's something that you haven't planned on casting on. Maybe it's something that somebody's been asking for, but you've been thinking, oh, I could do, but I don't really want to. Just something like that, something that hasn't been planned where you just think, oh, go on then. You can make whatever you want. Knit, crochet, sew, weave, anything at all. Everything is welcome. It's a make-along. Entries are only on Ravelry. There's a chatter thread and a finished objects thread. So the make-along's running from the 1st of February to the 31st of March. So if you've got an Oh Go On Then project, come and join in. No whips allowed. That's the point. I felt really bad being, and I think that's what I did. I'll check later. I think that's what I said, no whips allowed. I felt really bad saying that, but that's the whole point of it. It's supposed to be a last minute, oh, go on then. And I'm kind of thinking 2 months is an okay amount of time. I will be pulling winners from the FO thread. So the FO, sorry if I'm getting distracted, Luigi's meow. Sorry about that. He's got the world's loudest meow. Anyway, yes, so it's a last minute, really informal. There will be some prizes. I'm just going to pull a couple of pattern prizes from the finished objects thread after the 31st of March. So do come along. If you've got maybe somebody's asked for a pair of socks and you're thinking, oh, go on then. Or just something, just an oh go on then project, then come and join me for the make along on the 1st of February. I just thought it'd be something really fun. Plus, then it will give me the kick up the butt that I need to cast on Danny's cardigan. Because I'm going to need a kick up the butt to do that. I've decided I'm doing the Grant's cardigan by Tin Can Knits. Haven't bought the pattern yet. I've looked at the swatch. I'm going to do it in Women's Institute yarn. He just needs to choose what colours. So I'm going to swatch first and then make sure I've got the pattern all ready for the 1st of Feb and I'll cast it on. So I have to finish the painting honeycomb shawl before that happens. So I'm not allowing myself to cast on anything else. I'm just going to work on the painting honeycomb shawl. And that's it for all of the knitting talk, I think. I think that's everything. No, it is everything for the knitting talk. But I do need to mention before I forget, I have 2 winners from the birthday bonanza that haven't got in touch. One of them was Kellyanne from Yarn Tales by the Sea. You have won a prize in birthday bonanza, so if you can get in touch and let me know your shipping address. And the other one, I'm going to have to find it. I just had to watch the video to get the name. The second person I'm waiting for is Terry Anderson. You won Jeanette's gorgeous bag and I've not heard from you either. It could be that one of you have sent an email. Sometimes my emails go to spam. If something goes in spam, it won't show me for about 3 weeks. It's really annoying. So if you have sent an email, either of you, could you just maybe send me a Ravelry message or an Instagram message, because I'm not getting it. If you can't do that, leave a comment on this video and I'll try and figure something out to get in contact with you. But yeah, so 2 people that I'm waiting for. If I haven't heard from either of those 2 people by the next podcast, I'm going to have to draw again on those. Now the washing machine started. Goodness me, one interruption after the other. And it's not even the kids. So yeah, please try and get in touch with me if you can. And yeah, I think that is definitely all of the knitting content talk. So into live stuff, there's been nothing really gone on since Birthday Bonanza. We finished Birthday Bonanza on Tuesday of this week. We had an absolute blast. It was fabulous spending the week with you all. It really was. It was just such a lot of fun. Just reading the comments every day and just chatting with you all on the vlogs. It was such a lot of fun. We had such a blast. We really did. We are coming back for February vlogs. This isn't really live update, Alex, is it? Never mind, I'll just keep waffling. We're coming back for February vlogs on the 1st of February, which is going to be really exciting. And now into life updates. Yeah, nothing's happened. Absolutely nothing's happened. We have had the most awful weather. And I know that, you know, other parts of the world have had much colder temperatures than we have in the UK, but we're not used to it and we are not geared up for it. It was freezing, absolutely freezing. We didn't get, where I live, a lot of snow, but we did get the ice. The police had to actually shut the Moor Road. You know, the Moor Road that I go on all the time on the vlogs, because people still drove up there. I mean, why would you drive up there? Just why? Obviously, it's not a road that is even gritted, but people had still attempted to drive up there. Up by the Cow and Calf, it's very, very steep. The hill is really like this. And on one side of it, you're just rolling down an embankment. So it's not a good place to be driving in the ice. People got stuck. So I think, well, maybe the police closed the Moor Road about 8 o'clock in the morning after having cars go up there and get stuck. And accidents, there were accidents up there, obviously. So the council had to send the gritters up because there was just no option. They had to clear the roads to get the cars off it. So I'll try and pop a picture on the screen of the lovely, lovely Moor Road. But yeah, I was so shocked people went up there. We didn't. We stayed away. We stayed where it was nice and safe. But our road outside was a ice rink, absolute ice rink. When you drive to the end of the road, oh my word, it was just like driving on an ice rink. Because you get to the end of the road and it's like a T-junction, trying to get the car around that bit, and then to get out onto the main road, there's a little bit of a hill, not massive, but enough to send the car skidding. So I had to go out and drive in it, and I was like, oh my word, just get me onto main roads where they're gritted. It was so bad. So I'm sorry for all the moaning on the vlogs about the cold temperatures, and I know that people in other parts of the world had it at -27, but we are not geared up for it in the UK at all. We are just not geared up for it. So it affects us badly when we get those kind of temperatures. It's finally warmed up a little bit now. Plans next week, we've got the live dye next week. That is on Thursday at 7 p.m. We usually do it at 8 o'clock. But I think the last one, we started it at 7. It just gives us chance, once we've finished, because we're about an hour, once we've finished, to get all the yarn washed properly and then hanging up to dry and thoroughly rinsed before we go to bed. When we do it at 8 o'clock and we don't finish till like 10 past 9, by the time we've done all the clean down in the kitchen and then get all the yarn done, it's like 10 o'clock before we've stopped. So we started doing it at 7 now, just to make it easier for us. I hope that's okay. But yeah, so that's on Thursday at 7 o'clock. We'll be dyeing 8 skeins of yarn live. It's not a tutorial on how to dye yarn. It's just a little bit of fun. We don't know what's going to come out of it, just like you don't. We go by the colours that you all choose. So yeah, come and join us if you're free. And then, of course, we've got February vlogs starting in February. I'll still podcast during, I think I'll still podcast during February vlogs. I can do it on a weekend. Normally, Birthday Bonanza was different because it was only a week vlog. Normally, when we do a monthly vlog, we don't vlog on a weekend, just because vlogging every day is an awful lot of work. I absolutely love it, but it's an awful lot of work, and we don't do a great deal on a weekend. So a weekend is really hard to get content, but if I have the weekend off, it just gives me a break and just rejuvenates me for the Monday again, which is really helpful. Plus it means that I can film the podcast as well. So then 2 days off just mean that I can I've more chance of sticking with it, because like I say, vlogging is a lot of work. Sometimes when it's only a 20-minute video, it doesn't look like a lot of work's gone into it, but you may have had an hour's worth of footage on that. You don't use all the footage that you see, and you know, it's a lot of editing every single day, getting the thumbnails. I do normally cheat on the thumbnails. I normally just choose one and stick with that one, so I'm not having to do a thumbnail every day. But it's the editing, it's the rendering back to the phone, uploading it to YouTube. Then I have to check it before I publish it on YouTube. I do check it, because many a times I've had it where the sound hasn't uploaded, or it's frozen halfway through. There's been a problem somewhere, so now I do check things before they go onto YouTube to make sure it's all right. When I put things on the screen, sometimes the editing app may have glitched, and it'll leave it on the screen for the entire video. So they're the things that I check, but all that means it's a lot of work. So having the weekends off makes a huge difference to me. It just gives me a little bit of breathing space. So is that a cat? It's fine. I'm not pausing this camera again. So yeah, the February vlogs start on the 1st of February. So yeah, let me all know what you're working on. Let me know if any of you would like the pattern for this Devlin shawl, and just leave me a comment. I like to chat. And I hope you all have a lovely crafty 2 weeks. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Whatever you're working on, I hope that you're enjoying it, and yeah, just have a lovely 2 weeks, everybody. Bye bye.